How could this be happening in America? Citizens put in the crosshairs of their government by agents from the ATF.
They were looking for a way to scare us.
And Homeland Security.
Homeland Security raiding a guitar factory just makes no sense.
Environmental authorities threatening jail time.
We're going to use everything in the book to come after you.
And federal rangers staging a cattle grab.
Fully armed and fully ready to spoil for a fight.
These people discovered what it's like when a powerful force you thought was on your side turns against you.
And I'm not the only one. I'm speaking for thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe more.
Fox News reporting, Enemies of the State. From New York, here is John Scott.
Enemies of the state. The phrase conjures up Orwell, or perhaps the former Soviet Union, where an all-powerful government crushes any individual who stands up against it. But in truth, even in a representative democracy such as ours, if the government goes after you, it can be a nightmare. Tonight, we're going to show you several alarming stories in which government officials decide to take on private citizens. These people, who didn't and still don't believe they were breaking any rules, were suddenly in the fight of their lives, the full force of the government bearing down on them. And that's what makes it so scary. If it could happen to them, it could happen to anyone. We start in Nevada, where John Roberts has the story of a family of ranchers who found their very way of life under attack.
The Western Rangelands, vast, scenic, and a battleground for what became known as the Sagebrush Rebellion, a fight that began decades ago between locals and the federal government over land use.
The Sagebrush Rebellion got its name from the type of vegetation on a lot of the federal land in the West. Ranchers are complaining that the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, doesn't identify with ranching problems.
Wayne Hage Sr. didn't plan to become the face of that rebellion, but that's just what happened.
When did your parents buy the Pine Creek Ranch?
June of 1978.
Wayne Hage Jr. was just 2 when his parents sold their California ranch and bought Pine Creek Ranch in central Nevada. In other words, he can't remember a time when his family hasn't had to fight the government.
They bought it for a place that they could raise a family on a ranch and continue their livestock business.
The ranch itself is more than 7,000 acres. The purchase also included exclusive access to more than 700,000 acres of adjoining land administered by the federal government, so-called open range. Wayne took a couple of days to show us around.
Do you really need that much property?
Yes, in this country it takes 320 acres to raise one cow for 1 year.
Now, the Hages couldn't afford to purchase 750,000 acres, so instead they paid for their smaller piece of private property and at the same time bought the rights to water and grazing on that larger spread. That's the way it's been done out here since the 1860s. These rights have been handed down through purchase or will for more than 100 years and are the reason a ranch like Pine Creek is economically viable. However, that extra land is public property, managed by the Forest Service and the BLM, and that's where the Hages say their problems began. It's not like they weren't warned.
My dad bought it knowing that there was a problem down there, but he had worked with the federal agencies in the previous ranch in California and got along with them. And he thought, well, I can work with these folks. Come to find out you can't get along with somebody when they're actually trying to take your property.
Why would the government do that? The Hages say the feds were trying to strip them of their rights in order to take control of the land, partly for environmental reasons and the water, which in a desert state is like gold. In fact, many Western ranchers feel the government would like to end their way of life completely. No sooner had the Hage family settled in than the government offered to buy the ranch. Hage declined, so the government filed a claim for his water rights. Wayne Sr. wasn't having it. If the government wanted a fight is what it would get. He contested that claim, starting a battle that would consume the rest of his life.
In one 105-day grazing season, your family was visited by government employees 70 times, received an additional 40 certified letters containing various citations and notices. That's more than one visit by the government, in a sense, for every day that you were out there grazing.
That's right. One of the violations that they got my dad for, out of the many miles of fence that we have up on the mountain, one of these staples was missing out of one wire in the entire fence.
Where was that fence post?
That fence post was way on top of that mountain. We sent a man up there to go fix it.
How long did it take?
It took the man a full day.
Pound in a little staple and then get back down.
Exactly.
Is it fair to say that Pine Creek Ranch was in violation many times?
Probably to a strict T. Yeah, we fell in violation. There was no way to keep out of it. But to say were we in violations of the general terms and conditions of these permits that we're operating under compared to other ranchers, absolutely not.
In 1989, a fed-up Wayne Sr. published a book on government abuse of property rights titled Storm Over Rangelands. The Hages claimed that in response, the government reacted by going after them even harder, and by the end of 1990, had suspended one of the Hages' essential grazing permits.
We will be observing effects of cattle grazing to the resources.
The Forest Service made this video in 1991, laying out its case.
Excessive grazing is causing some of these more undesirable species like Kentucky bluegrass here, and they are tending to dominate the site now.
The feds claimed that Hage cattle were overgrazing that allotment and the land needed a 5-year rest to recover. They instructed the Hages to remove their cattle. The problem, Wayne says, is that the government couldn't clearly identify the boundaries of the forbidden area.
We were licensed to have cattle in the valley. But if cattle got up here in the mountains, they were going to be in trespass, and there's no fence dividing the two. There's 21 miles of unfenced boundary just on this portion alone. The Forest Service couldn't even tell us where the line was, but if a cow got on the other side of that line, they were going to impound that cow without notice.
That is exactly what happened.
So the cows actually got on that side of the line?
Yes.
So you were in trespass?
Yes. Technically, by the Forest Service regulations, we were in trespass.
On July 27, 1991, the Forest Service took action.
The government was coming in to take our cows on an impoundment, made a big production out of it. They had 10 federal agents, fully armed and fully ready to spoil for a fight.
It didn't turn into a Hollywood-style gunfight. Quite the opposite, actually. For the Hages, it was a big dose of reality. In all, the Forest Service impounded and eventually sold over 100 cattle. Then, they sent Hage a bill for the difference between the sale and the cost of confiscation.
That was the final straw where it was virtually impossible to run cows anymore because there was no guarantee that we could keep a cow on one side or the other of that imaginary line.
With little choice left, the Hages liquidated their herd. Their cattle ranching business was effectively shut down. There was only one option left. They sued the government, claiming their property had been taken without compensation or due process. Just 4 months later, as Wayne Sr. was doing maintenance to get water to his private property, the Forest Service charged him with a felony.
He cleaned a ditch.
He cleaned a ditch?
He did. The ditch was in disrepair. Now, you could not get water through the ditch. And then after we cleared those trees, they came and arrested my father and took him down and convicted him of destroying government property.
He was arrested, tried, convicted. Then you went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
And overturned it. Yes, the Ninth Circuit threw that case out.
But the damage had been done. By the mid-1990s, the Hages were basically broke and had lost all their grazing permits. Both mother and father had to find other jobs to feed the family.
The stress was very significant, I think, for my mom especially.
Ramona Hage Morrison is one of Wayne's 4 big sisters.
She had 5 kids. She was running this house, and then this situation with the government on top of it was very difficult for her.
1996, your mother passed away at a young age, complications from stroke. Your sister said she believes it was the stress of government harassment that contributed to your mother's death.
Oh, I believe very much that is the case. She was a very sweet lady and very strong lady. But there's only so much a person can take.
The Hages' last hope, the lawsuit against the government, continued to wend its way through the system. Then, in 2006, Wayne Hage Sr., who'd fought so hard for his way of life, lost a battle with cancer.
Buried my mother, my father. We buried a lot of people on this deal, people who had stood up and tried to do what was right. After a while, it does get to you. It wears you down.
The Hage patriarch was gone, but the fight was far from over. The torch had been passed from father to son, and the most amazing part of the story was still to come.
We'll return to the Hages struggle with some surprising twists and turns a bit later, but next, a government invasion isn't music to the ears of a guitar company.